Welcome, friends out there, and hello in this new episode of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. We wanted to record one last week, but at the end of it, the battery of my computer just went all down, so it got lost in the ether. But here we are. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Sascha. And I just changed my mind. How about we talk about Christmas?
We could do that too. But mind you, we have a video on Christmas already. But if you want to do another one, that's fine.
No. If we have one on Christmas, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
However you like. Okay, so the topic for this week is going to be your purpose. And let's maybe start off with a question. What do you understand what do you mean when you say the word purpose, Michael?
Well, I purposely say it. I always purposely say it, so I use it on purpose. That's what I mean.
Great. Session is over.
Purpose is direction, generally something that you're doing deliberately and because you want to do it. And also it has another meaning. What is your purpose? What is the purpose of a human being? What's the purpose of being born? What's the point?
Which is what we are going to talk about today.
That's what we're going to talk about. The second one.
The second one.
The purpose of our birth. I mean,
the pertinent one.
A lot of people, when they get here, they don't want to be here. So what was the point? What was the purpose? And purpose for me, definitely, is the fact that we're spiritual beings. We're snowflakes. If there's a vast blizzard, each one of us in that blizzard is a snowflake of purpose. And so the whole blizzard on its own doesn't seem to be moving or going anywhere much, but each flake has the purpose, each in the blizzard, in other words, each human has the purpose of finding who they are, why they are, and the meaning of their life. And then when they find that, to give their life purpose. Because for most people, a lot of people say to me, I just don't know what my purpose is in life.
Right, it's a very common question.
And they seem to be very unfulfilled without knowing what their purpose is, because for them, their purpose of being is literally their fulfillment. And I always reply with pretty much the same answer. Your purpose is to live, be, and express love, unconditional love. But of course, first you have to find out what that is. And everybody thinks they know what love is because they're loved by their parents. And yet, love still remains probably the greatest mystery because it's still believed to be an emotion. And that's not what it is. And so very few people actually find the purpose of themselves. They find a reason to live and an enjoyable reason. That's not a difficult one, but the very purpose, which is the meaning of who I am and why I am, and what was my purpose in being born in the early part of the 20th century, etc., etc.
Right. What I find fascinating is that there seem to be two currents of understanding of purpose, the way we talk about it in human consciousness. One talks about a purpose that is kind of predestined for each individual, that you just have to find. And then the other current is that you create your own purpose by just making a decision, focusing, and then you give that purpose energy, and it becomes stronger and stronger. And then the other side is what you just talked about, where your purpose is to live unconditional love, which is kind of like a combination of both, because you have the predestined part, which is the same for everyone, the unconditional love, right? But then the expression of it is completely individual and needs to be created as a purpose.
I don't accept that there is anything predestined.
Okay.
If it's predestined, then you can't be a free creator because you've got to follow your destiny. And angels follow their, divine path, and they don't have free will in the way that we do. And so, if you have free will, then you can't. I mean, you could say, if you like, our destiny is to be gods and goddesses, or forget masculine and feminine because there won't be that. Is to be creators. That's our destiny. Well, we're creators from the word go. We're creators every morning we wake up. Our first thoughts are
So
the
that
beginning of creating our day.
so
So to me, no, there is no destiny, not pre or anything.
so that suggests, if I understand you correctly, that the way you look at it, our purpose is entirely our creation, our own creation.
Yes, yes. Um, that's a tricky one. That's a very tricky one. You could say that we were, when I say conceived, even let's go back to the time of souls, and let's say supreme creation, we were conceived with a probability,
Right.
a great probability. But whether we achieve that probability is down to each one of us. I don't think we can become nothingness. I was talking to a man not long ago, and he feels that if you mess up on a soul level, you go right back to primordial stuff and have to begin again. And I left him with that, but I don't feel that at all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't lose the development you've got, but you can certainly set your self back a million years with no advancement. But then humanity's done that pretty well, that we have not advanced, not grown in consciousness for quite a long time, which is all hidden by the fact that we're so clever, and that clever hides the fact that we're also so stupid because we're wrecking our planet and we live on it.
If you don't mind, I'd like to go a little deeper on this kind of paradox seeming point, where we are the creators of our own purpose and the connection to our own probability as being those soul seeds from supreme creation. So let's say we each, because we are unique expressions of supreme creation, we have our unique probability pattern, which I think we've talked about this before, is this unique mixture of healer, creator, and teacher energy, right? That is very individual for each one of us. And then we venture out into eternal life as that probability pattern. And then we, with our own mental and emotional faculties, we do with that whatever we do. And then that extent create our own purpose. So following this train of thought, what's the difference, or looking at people out there, I can't help but see some people who, let's say people like, for example, Jane Goodall, right? Who are, from the moment they're born, they carry like a big purpose with them. And then as a child, they never have a period in their life where they feel like, well, what is my purpose? They're always on a specific track. Then there are others which their whole life seem to be lacking purpose and always seem to be kind of drifting along emptily. Is that because they lacked creating that purpose in their eternal journey? And is it because those who seem very full of purpose and therefore passionate and therefore mostly successful in whatever they do, have they managed to create their purpose more strongly?
Who was the name you mentioned?
Oh, this isn't her name Jane Goodall, the
Oh,
chimpanzee?
yeah.
Yeah.
Jane Goodall, the chimpanzees.
Yeah, just as one
Yeah,
example.
yeah. Okay. So
But you see where I'm,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I do. My brother had a very close friend when he was at school, and he always wanted to be a brain surgeon.
Right.
From the time he could almost walk, he wanted
Right.
to be a brain surgeon. However, he became a brain surgeon, and he died a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
and very young, only in his early 30s. I'm not sure, but something dramatic like a massive stroke or a heart attack. Now, you sort of wonder if he just found his purpose, then why? Why would that happen? And as I often pondered that over the years, because I knew him, his name was Richard Reed, and I really liked him. He's one of the few of my brother's friends that I actually thought was semi-human, and he was rather nice. And I often thought he found his purpose, but in later years, I'm not sure that he did find his purpose. He found a direction, and it's a direction probably his father or brother or somebody in his family was a brain surgeon, and he admired him very much. And it couldn't help bringing me to the fact that I felt I don't like conclusions, so I don't make them. But it seemed to me that on a soul level, he had so completely missed his real purpose that, because there's no accidents, the soul said, okay, let's start this again. You know, we've got enormous potential here, but we're completely on the wrong track. Let's get out, come back and do it again, and we'll get it right next time. Now, so I tend to very strongly believe that the purpose of every person is bound in with their spirituality, their eternal life, rather than the short-term lives we have, and their eternal life and their spirituality. And I feel that that's always the purpose. Now, there could be many great lives lived, but generally, like Martin Luther King Jr., he found his spirituality and all that. So he became a leader of men. And I think JFK, who was assassinated by the CIA, I think that he definitely was beginning to find the touch of a spirituality. It was just emerging and was going to prove to be enormously dangerous. I read recently of 6 reasons why they got rid of him. But definitely, when a person gains what I would call spiritual integrity, you can't shut them up other than kill the body, because spiritual integrity is something that is rare and, as far as controllers are concerned, extremely dangerous.
Right.
And so on our path to find our purpose, I think the first part of it is to find our spirituality, and with that, fairly rapidly, there becomes the spiritual purpose. And then I feel that that tends to give birth to the spiritual morality and the spiritual ethics that go with it, that allow you to walk that path, no matter whether you're bribed or threatened or whatever. Whatever your path is, you'll take it, even if it means you will die, because you've reached that point that what your purpose is more important than the short-term life of a body. And so I think for a lot of people in mainstream consciousness, that level of purpose, they don't even get close to it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it pretty sure by the time you move into fourth density or that fourth bandwidth, then I think that that is definitely there, and it's very difficult to control and keep away.
So would you say,
so,
just to throw in one thought here, before we continue, would you say, or would you agree that for the majority of people, they are on a journey towards the first step of their purpose finding, which is the ignition of some spiritual cognition about themselves? And then you have the smaller percentage of humanity which has already had that ignition of some kind, and they are one step ahead on their journey of finding their purpose.
but if you were to go back into previous incarnations, you would find that they were living very different ways, and those who ignited it, it's never suppressed anymore. It's going to keep growing, and for many, they just didn't. And I think personally, I would point the finger at religion for suppressing the the growth of spiritual purpose,
Right.
because you just believe in God, the man-made God, and you just go to church and you get caught up in ritual and you say the same thing until you don't even think about it.
Right.
You know, when you're spiritually, let's just say, in communication with the divine, you don't use the same words every day in a
Sure.
regular chant. You speak what's in your heart. It's fresh and new. Church is just a ritual. It's
Right.
just a ritual of sameness, which keeps you away from spiritual purpose because you become compliant and programmed.
Right.
And so you're programmed away from your spiritual purpose. And, that's a lot of people. That's a serious lot of people, particularly with the Catholics. And it can happen in Buddhism and in others. And Muhammad, all these religions, they
I would
all
go
have
as
their.
far, yeah, I would go as far as to say that this can happen in any type of organization, right?
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the enthusiasm for religion that the last soccer match, the grand final of the soccer match between France and Argentina?
Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal. It's probably the most watched event on the planet.
Right.
More people would be watching that than watch the Olympics at any
Right.
stage.
Right.
It's the greatest spectator sport in the world. And but the fanaticism it brings up, now the chances are that stays with them all their life, and their spiritual purpose is completely buried under this fantasy, this illusion of who's the best footballing team in the world. Now, I'm not knocking it. I think great, fine, it's harmless. But it does, and I think it's deliberate, it does suppress your spiritual purpose. I'm not saying there are no spiritual people who enjoy that, but the great masses would not have turned toward it.
Okay. So
And I
let's go,
liked it that Argentina won.
let's move back to the soul level of purpose. How would you describe, and I know that you said at the beginning of this conversation that
Let me
it's
just cut in here. I would say there is no other spiritual purpose except soul level.
right. Okay,
Spiritual
good,
purpose in your head is a concept.
good. So then from that perspective, when we speak of great lives lived of people who've been very intense in their pursuit of any particular career or achievement, whether it's scientific, artistic, or whatever, that is just the intensified focus in one probability, right? Over a long time.
Say it again, that last bit.
If we look from that perspective, that the real purpose can only be looked at from a soul perspective, from on a soul level, then when we look at great lives lived in the sense of great achievements, scientific, artistic, business, whatever it is, those are not necessarily the expression of that soul purpose, but rather maybe a prolonged focus on one specific probability pattern for many, many, many incarnations, right? So
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
okay, so in contrast, if we look at the real purpose, the soul's purpose, you said earlier that it is to live or to find unconditional love or to express unconditional love. How then is that different for each person, for each soul?
It's different in as much as there is nothing that let's say behind me is here Uluru, and if you walk in anywhere in Australia or anywhere in the world and head toward it, eventually you'll get there because it's already been made, and eventually you'll arrive at it. Unconditional love is not that way. Unconditional love, to me, in most of humanity, is still a vague concept because it means treating yourself unconditionally, lovingly. And we treat ourselves basically overall terribly, terribly. There'll always be wars because most people's relationship with themselves are the echoes of a battlefield. And so it's always been a bit of a dichotomy, I think, or a paradox. We have to create, because it's not there, we have to create unconditional love for ourselves to know what unconditional love is. So you could say when you created, it was always there.
It's
And
so
it's never
ironic.
been without it.
Yeah.
But until you created it, it's not there. And it's a complete irony. I mean, there isn't a word for it. It's beyond a paradox.
It's almost humorous.
When you discover it, you look around and think, God, there isn't anything that isn't unconditional love. But until that moment, unconditional love, it remains, there's no such thing. So it's nothing we can find collectively, even though as a collective, we are unconditional love. You still can't find it that way. A lot of people go into monasteries to find this, and they don't find it there. They end up emulating other monks who might appear to walk around with a serene smile as though they've got it, but the serene smile isn't it. Now, I'm not saying they don't have it, but it's more difficult. You actually would find unconditional love in the greatest conflict. And the reverse side of it, all wars have been manufactured, and yet God never wastes an opportunity. So in the middle of the greatest conflict is also the closest you're ever going to be to find unconditional love. It's a complete paradox again. In other words, you've got your enemy in your sights, and in that moment you realize, this is myself. I love him. And you don't shoot. And you've been transformed in that moment. You realize there is nobody and nothing outside of self. But if you can only feel that, if you find love for yourself. There's some beautiful stories of such things happening in the Second World War. So this is what I feel with cities. A city is a place of conflict, let's face it. It might be nice shopping, but it's a place of conflict. And yet it offers the greatest opportunity to find your purpose of why you were born. Whereas if you sit out in the middle of the countryside and the environment is all one of beauty and joy and you're quiet and peaceful, you just live with it and never find out what it was.
I think one more important distinction to look at here is that for most humans, if they think about, oh, what's my purpose? They think of something that they should give or do in this world. So something external.
Yeah.
Should I become this? Should I do this? Should I share that? Whatever. Whereas the way we're talking about this now and the way you're depicting it, real purpose is really something on the inside that you create.
That's a good observation.
Right?
That's a very good observation, because everybody asks me, what is my purpose? What do I do for other people?
It's always relating, yes.
And the silent part is, which will make me feel better about myself.
Exactly, right. That's the exact words
now,
missing.
There are some who don't have that. I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. for a moment considered himself. It was what he did. That was his love was expressing. But that is the silent language that isn't spoken in most people. And often I finish their sentence for them. And so I give them the most difficult answer. Then all your purpose is to unconditionally love yourself. And when you're doing that, all the rest will be revealed. They look very dissatisfied because they realize that that's probably not going to happen in their lifetime.
I would maybe go as far as to say that the moment that you tap into this unconditional love, your purpose, as in, okay, what am I about to share with the world, reveals itself, like you just said.
It's born. That moment, it's your purpose is born. Yes.
And and it's kind of like, ironically, you become your purpose.
Yes. There's nothing out there you have to do. your expression is the purpose. And if you follow it, your expression will affect a lot of people, invariably.
Because if I look at your journey, and that's just from my external perspective, you set out with an intent on this spiritual journey. And I think at no point you decided to purposefully share with the world or become a spiritual teacher because this is the purpose that you decided to choose. It was rather as your consciousness unfolded and as your spiritual truth and journey unfolded, you became that spiritual teacher, right?
If you told me what my life was going to be when we were young, I would have definitely sent you to a psychologist to have your head examined very thoroughly, because I'd say you're well on your way to the land of and so yes, it all just developed and it actually developed to a degree that sort of almost frightened me.
So did you ask your so in the early stages of your life, did you ask yourself the question, what is my purpose in life? Or did that question never cross your mind?
Until I was around about 30, middle of 30 something, early 30s, if you said to me, what is spirit? I would have talked to you about whiskey and brandy and those sort of things, because that was the only spirit I knew of.
So I know we're just moving maybe a couple minutes over time, but so that state, I think, reflects very much the state of many people out there who are living kind of in an automated way, right? Where everything is just a continuation of habits.
Humanity is on automatic, yeah.
Right.
We need to get in the driver's seat, disengage automatic, and take manual control. But the governments don't like that. The institution doesn't like that. They don't like manual control. Stay with the automatic, please, and we can control you better. And I don't want to be cynical, but unfortunately, it's absolutely true. So, in other words, the process of individualization is deeply tied in to your finding unconditional love and to your purpose being born and coming through. And then the individualization and the way you will do it will step away from the crowd and you'll begin to express your purpose and very powerfully. And then if somebody said, well, why don't you stop? You would laugh. You'd say, but I can't. This is my purpose. You can't stop doing it because you cease to be who you are. You don't cease to be an identity, but you cease to be who you are, because this is who I am, is what I does.
It's almost,
like, in other words, the scent of a rose is unique. The scent of a water lily flower is unique, but you can't get the scent of a water lily flower from a rose or a rose from a water lily. We're all the same. Every one of us has a unique fragrance, which is our expression of truth and purpose. That's a good note to end on.
and I can't help but kind of smile at the divine irony and humor that all of this carries.
Yeah. Well, we are a very ironic species. You know, let's avoid our greatness with every cell in our body, and let's stay as mundane as we possibly can.
Yeah, what we're doing here is definitely beyond that.
I mean, how many people in their daily thoughts refer to themselves as being magnificent?
There are two in the room
think
here.
of what would his magnificence like to do now?
Right. Unfortunately,
unfortunately
not enough. Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Many older people inflict that on their grandchildren, but they never inflict it on themselves.
Right. Talking about old people, I think
I don't know any.
No, but that I was just going to say that that's one of the saddest things to look at, to see how people get into this, get sucked into the apathy of losing their appetite for life more and more, and then there is no trace of that hunger for purpose left at all, and then they have to start all over again, and then it happens all again. And
I would say when your purpose is strong within you, the whole process of aging changes.
I would
You
agree.
don't have all these sicknesses and all these things that come with it. You don't slow down. Your purpose drives you. It energizes you. It feeds you. It nourishes you. But it's spiritual and it comes from the soul.
Yeah.
And that is the greatest power we have.
And isn't it kind of funny that we're born and then we feel like, oh my God, what's my purpose? Only to learn that we have to create our purpose. And then once we created it, we found out we are the purpose. And then we realize, oh my God.
Yeah. We become the purpose. And if anybody said, what's your purpose? You'd just smile and say, just to be happy, just to be who I am.
But wouldn't it be a wonderful answer? Wouldn't it be a wonderful answer to say, I am the purpose. I am my purpose.
Well, in a way, that's what we become.
Yeah.
Our purpose. But then you only find your purpose. You can't have an attachment to your purpose.
Right.
But if you have a purpose to which you're attached, then you don't have a purpose. You have a probability path you're walking, and you've walked it before, because you cannot attach to purpose. It's just a freedom expression that has the greatest fragrance that you wish to follow and express, but there's no attachment to an outcome.
I think that is the most beautiful definition of purpose that we've come up with so far. What you just said is perfect, I think. The purpose is, can you just repeat that? Purpose is something like purpose is the...
Purpose is to follow your path of freedom that is unique to you and to which you can have no attachment, and it's just your way of living. There's nothing else you could do. It's your way of living and being.
The part I like most was something like the fullest expression of your truth and freedom in the moment.
Exactly, and it's joyful, and it's self-nourishing, and it's self-sustaining, and it's free. There's no, I've got to achieve this result. It doesn't exist.
Or to end this conversation, which I've really enjoyed, on another note could be, what's the purpose of the sun? To shine, obviously.
The sun just does its thing.
Yeah.
Like a farmer friend said, every morning it rises in the east and sets in the west. And they try to tell me we're going round the sun. It's obvious the sun is going round us. I said, you're right, Walter. We'll leave it that way. I mean, why would I try to convince him that we go round the sun? It's just ridiculous. So let the sun go round the world for him. And,
does it even matter?
Pleasure at least. Gave him a sense of importance.
Right. Okay, I think this is perfect. We've done 5 or 10 minutes more than planned. Thank you so much, Michael. I think this was a wonderful and insightful conversation. My
pleasure.
As always, if you like this conversation, make sure to share it, make sure to like it, and so forth. Subscribe to this channel, and see you in the next session.
See you in the next session.
By the way, Merry Christmas, because this is our last one before Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm not quite sure why Christmas is merry and next year is happy, because I think purposeful would be very nice.
Purposeful Christmas, everyone. Lots of love.